All right, sports fans, welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I'm Jeff Hartman, the co-host, not the man with the picks. That's the guy next to me here on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate it. Fans First Sports Network should be your one-stop shop for the latest sports news. And with that out of the way, Pez, welcome. What's going on?
Well, we're keeping track of some baseball action, Jeff. We had live plays going today. We're taping on Wednesday, so I got monitors all over the country. Looks like our into some fanfare. Apparently, some people didn't approve of the Skubal Detroit Tigers pick today against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and
That's right.
looks like it just ended 8-0 Tigers, 3-0 in the first inning, and Skubal is a stud. He's a monster. He's the guy's 6'3", 250. Throws gas. I mean, I last I checked, I was in and out today. Guy had five strikeouts through 2 innings. I mean, we're looking at a Cy Young winner, and we got him today at -145 at home, Jeff. And this is what we talked about on the Instagram yesterday and the last couple of days. Betting baseball is a very opportunistic thing. We're going to get into a little bit about what we look for, but when you get maybe the best base pitcher in baseball at -145 at home against a sub 500 team, I mean, I don't know what we're talking about here. I mean, that to us is that just flashing neon lights. And the Pirates throw a good guy too, but Skubal at home is a horse.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a Pirate fan, Jared Jones he's a rookie. He's been having a good year. He hasn't gotten a lot of run support. That was the only thing that scared me, was Jared Jones could potentially duel with the best pitchers, really, and he didn't do that. So you win that bet. Good for you. We'll talk about baseball today. I think it's appropriate to start talking about the NBA. And the National Basketball Association, one series is already over. Boston beating Indiana, sweeps them. The T-Wolves are clinging to dear life. They have Game 5 coming up, but the semis, they were not good for us at Pez's Picks.
Well, Jeff, we lost a few in a row, and there's a time in the playoffs where and this is something you have to identify as a gambler, that the data and your algorithm and your system, it just doesn't mean anything anymore. To have 2 NBA semifinals come to, almost sweeps 4-0, that's not natural. And, you have to be able to identify that there's a point where data gets thrown out. Teams must have a weakness or a coaching, advantage or some sort of advantage that these teams have identified. And Boston did it with Indiana. Haven't said that Indiana covered a lot of those games, but tough to bet on a team that's losing 2-3 in a row and say they're going to win. And I was talking about it last night with one of our full-time colleagues, the Action Man, who helps us out a lot. We're texting, and he goes, I'm taking Minnesota. I'm like, why? The numbers aren't there. He goes, I know, but how can we have 2 sweeps? How can we go 8-0 in the semis? He goes, I'm just basing it on that. Now as a gambler, I kind of like that thinking a little bit, Jeff, but that is not a good investment plan, where you're kind of betting, almost in against the odds. You're betting on something shouldn't happen. And, I liked Minnesota a little bit last night, but they are not convincing. The data shows that Edwards isn't as good against Dallas for various reasons. I mean, they're defending it well. So, part of it is you want to stick to your guns and stick to your system, especially that having it, that it works. But when you get to the end of the playoffs, it certainly does get tougher. And we're seeing that. And, the NBA it's a fickle beast. It's a different game in the playoffs. And, we're seeing some veterans that know how to win in the playoffs. And I think that's really Indiana, not a veteran team. Minnesota, not a veteran team. I mean, you look at what Doncic is doing and you look at what Boston did. And, Boston probably not the athletic team that Indiana has. Way more size and way more athleticism. Boston losing their center, Porzingis didn't even play. And they pretty much dominated that team. And that's an impressive victory for Boston.
So barring something absolutely, I guess I don't want to say catastrophic, but that would be the collapse if Dallas were to somehow lose this series. But let's look ahead because I think we're just going to leave the semis be, and let's look ahead.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably. I mean, we'll look at this next game, Jeff, and we look at every game. We go through the numbers, and we look at intangibles. But I'm always reminded of myself, Jeff. About 20 years ago, I got myself in a pretty big financial hole. The New York Yankees were up 3-0 against the Boston Red Sox in the playoffs, and I had a large nugget on the Yankees to win the series. I'd hit them every game, and then they lose. It's 3-1. And we say to ourselves, like I was talking with the Action Man last night, no way Yankees lose 2 in a row. And they lose. And we say, no way 3 in a row. And they lose. And it's 3-3, game 7. You say there's no way the Boston Red Sox are going to beat the Yankees 4 games in a row. And they did. So, Jeff, I lost thousands on that series. And that to me is, one of the scars, one of the lessons that Pez's picks I tried to share. You remember your really bad losses more than you remember your good wins because, that game I kept compounding and I kept, you're chasing your money a little bit. And I was a younger man and, probably more money. And, we had other action going. There's a lot of things going on back in those days, Jeff. But I and my colleagues said there's no way. Now, turns out there wasn't a way, Jeff. Manny Ramirez and Big Papi, they were juicing up on the roids in the locker room. They've come to admit. That's bullshit, Jeff. I should get my money back from Major League Baseball. That's a bunch of crap. We watched those games and we said, how's this happening? And now I know. I mean, Manny Ramirez, he was shot up like a racehorse is going to be in Belmont a week from about 10 days from now.
Well, let's not pretend that the Yankees didn't have people on the juice either. Let's not.
Probably true, Jeff. Probably true.
But so, let's stick to basketball for a sec. Thursday night is when the Mavericks and Timberwolves will play their next game. The early line is Minnesota -5.5. You're going to punch the numbers. Check out Instagram and Twitter and X at Pez's Picks for his official pick. If he decides to play it, we'll see. But let's just assume, and I know this is a hasty assumption, let's just assume that the Mavericks do enough. They move, they punch their ticket, and it's Dallas-Boston in the finals. What's your take on that potential matchup?
I think Porzingis in Boston is going to be the big variable here. Indiana, they did expose Boston a little bit in terms of their kind of presence in the key down there. And Porzingis is an awesome player. I think he averages around 20 a game, and probably like what we call like a 30-point player when you add in rebounds, assists, and points. And they've been doing it without him. They don't look as good. I hear he's getting healthier. I watched Dallas a lot last night, and we weren't watching it for the gambling sense. I'm kind of doing some research. I'm expecting them to get through, whether it's this game or the next one. But Dallas has done an incredible job defending, and the one thing that they do, they let Doncic kind of play a free safety kind of role. They were talking about it in the game a little bit last night. He's able to leave guys wide open and leave guys and kind of focus around the rim and picks up garbage rebounds. He can assist on guys kind of getting to the rim. And that's what's hurting Edwards a lot too. And it gives him a lot more energy on the offensive side. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that against Boston. I mean, we've got 3-4 guys on that team that can hit outside shots consistently. So I think it's a great matchup. Probably the best matchup we have going. I don't think anybody's stopping Doncic when he's on. The guy's he's awesome. I mean, this guy's he's like Magic Johnson reincarnated. He was throwing passes last night that we just don't see in the NBA anymore. There was one in the first half. He was throwing diagonal passes, no look passes on a dime that guys are catching. They don't have they don't have a player, in my opinion, that can really take a game. Now, I know Tatum can light it up. I mean, Tatum's, my opinion, top 5 player, top 10 player, no doubt.
Yeah.
But Doncic, at different aspects of the game, assists, scoring, guy hits the big shot. He can get it to the hole. He can hit from, a step in from half court. That's that guy's range. So it's going to be a really, really good matchup. I like the coaching. I think Boston probably has the best coach and the best strategy in the league. So I don't know. We're going to have to look at that. We're going to have to really punch some numbers. And, we're going to – a lot of it depends on the refereeing too, Jeff. I mean, these playoffs, that Knicks series, that was 80s, 90s basketball. they're calling it a little tighter in this Dallas-Minnesota series, and I think that hurts Minnesota a little bit too.
So let me ask you a question. You talk about the big events that we've covered since we started the podcast, the Super Bowl, the national championship in men's college football, March Madness. We've done it all. This is the first time we've had a sport with a series, an NBA finals. It's a best of 7. Is there any way that you would ever say, when we're talking about Pez's picks, I'm not going to make a play on game 1? Or are you like, I'm going to make a play every single time there's a game? How do you handle that?
Well, that's possible, Jeff, because game ones are the most informative game. And a lot of times that can dictate to you what's going to happen, and you can see how teams match up, and especially with playoff basketball. A team might not match up in the regular season against another team because it's a less physical game, where the Pacers and the Knicks showed that, physical play rewarded those teams in the playoffs. And, especially Dallas, I think they're a 5 seed or 4 seed. So, this style of play benefits Dallas. It benefits them and their big guys down low. So we could take a game 1 off, and if the numbers aren't there and there's any question mark, then I talked about it, I think, on Twitter or Instagram. If there's a question or you think it's a 50-50 bet, you probably shouldn't be betting it. If you can find a statistical advantage, if your algorithm is hitting the points that you want it to, those are the plays you want to put in. When you're just betting off your gut on game 1, and that's not always the case. And, in this series, it's going to be interesting. Boston's got a lot of time off, and time off tends to not help NBA teams. You tend to lose your rhythm. You tend to lose kind of your shot a little bit. And I think Indiana showed that in game 1 and probably should have won that game 1. And we went to overtime, but Boston was on its heels. They looked a little bit slow. It looked a little bit kind of lazy. And, so those are all things we're going to be looking at with this game 1 that could be coming up, maybe this weekend or maybe longer. And I don't know who this benefits. I don't know if I would not want to coach a team that's on a week or more rest in the NBA. I just wouldn't want to. I like the consistency. You keep your edge up, and that game moves at a pace of play that is it's not similar to other sports. I mean, everybody on the court is moving faster than humanly possible, right? Like the passes these guys throw, 5 feet away, you're throwing a rocket bullet pass, probably 60-mile-an-hour ball, and guys they're catching it. They're putting it in the hole. So I think defensively it hurts teams when they're on a long rest too. Defensively, you kind of lose your edge and you kind of lose that killer instinct a little bit. So we'll have to punch that into the algorithm and see.
We shall see. So we'll keep tabs on the NBA. Make sure you check out @Pez's picks for more day-to-day picks. And let's talk about baseball. We mentioned this already. You had a play on Wednesday, game 1 of a doubleheader between the Pirates and the Tigers. That play came through and was a winner for you. Let's not just talk about picks that you might have in the upcoming slate of games in the Major League Baseball schedule, but also the why behind the plays. It's something you wanted to discuss on the podcast, why, and sometimes the methodology of these picks. Go into that.
Well, Jeff, and you need a lot of help in the gambling world, and we got a big network out there. And I think it was Monday or Tuesday we put in a play where we had a team. It's slipping me right now. I wanted to write it down, but we got so many plays going on here. Might have been Boston, Baltimore, but we took Boston. We took a pitcher who isn't great, paper wise, but his team wins, whereas ERA is a little higher, 4 or 5, I think it is. But at times, a pitcher that throws strikes is a best friend of people in the field. Guys don't want to sit outside in the field and watch strikeouts. They like it, but it kind of hurts the bats a little bit. If you're out there doing nothing, you're in the heat, you kind of get lulled out of the game. So this kid throws strikes, he gives up runs, but it kind of motivates, or it kind of, whatever it is, puts an energy in the Boston Red Sox that they go out and they get more hits and they score more runs, especially on the road. There was another play we were looking at. I was talking with the Sling Man Sunday night. A team ended at 1 in the morning, and then they had like a 3 o'clock game the next day on the road. So, we're going to bet against that team. They're not landing on the plane till dawn. Then they got to go check into a hotel. They got to go and do batting practice, go back to the hotel. So those are little things that we look at as a possible advantage. And those are things you can kind of catch Vegas on a little bit. And I think we did today too with Detroit. A home team, in Detroit, we liked yesterday, they were on a day's rest. They had a day off. they're sitting around the house, they're relaxing. You get to see the family a little bit. You kind of get your laundry done. You kind of reset. And then they had an extra day off. Game got rained out yesterday. So Pittsburgh, they were forced to go on the road, forced to go into a hotel, sit around the hotel in the rain. Maybe you go to like the hotel gym. And those are little things that sometimes the line doesn't really show. And I think a minus 145 in that situation with our boy today for Detroit was a solid value play. If a team plays in heat, where a team goes out west or anywhere, I mean, the East Coast in the summer too, you play 3 days in 100-degree heat. I mean, that's going to tire out your bullpen. That's going to tire out your pitching. Generally, when a game is really hot, unless it's the end of the season, they're pulling starting pitchers earlier than they would. You throw a guy 110 pitches in 90-some plus heat, you're gassing him for a month. So the bullpen gets a lot more work in hot series. And that's something that we look at. When bullpens get worked, those teams tend not to cover the next week. A worked bullpen destroys a game because, June, especially May and June, you're pulling a starting pitcher 5-6 innings tops usually. And if that bullpen's worked, then you're into the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th guy in the bullpen, and those guys tend to give up hits and runs. So there's so many moving parts to baseball. It's less algorithm and more research, Jeff, and that comes the data's out there for everybody. I mean, the algorithm's out there for everybody. If it was as easy as picking the pitcher with the lowest ERA, the best record, the most strikeouts, everybody win every baseball bet. But
Right.
It's a 6-day-a-week sport. You've got weather, you've got travel, you've got the mundane. I mean, there's a lot of baseball guys that admit that June and early July, they ain't really into the game yet, right? I mean, they're hot, and come July, when we get mid-season, that's when things start perking up. They give pitchers an extra inning or two, but you're not seeing complete games out there very often. So that means you're betting the bullpen, you're betting the closer, whoever that's going to be. And so we have a ton of research that goes into each of these plays, and we're not just putting plays out there that we like. We're looking for situational and value plays.
All right. Do you have any plays coming up that you want to announce? Or you just want to say, hey, check out Instagram and Twitter?
Well, it's tough in advance for baseball. I mean, even today, we put out an Instagram this morning around 7 a.m. It wasn't posted till the morning that Skubal was pitching for Detroit. I don't know why, and I understand that. You don't want your ace ever in a condition or a situation that's off. If they started that game in Detroit at 12:40 today.
Yeah,
that's an early time for anybody. And that kind of scared me a little bit, but the line didn't move and they kept with them. You throw a starter at that early and there's some rust there maybe, or, you got your mental clock. So tough to predict who's going to be on the mound each game. So it's tough going into it, but I always look for teams coming back from long road trips, coming back to home. They tend to play a little better. We're taking the Phillies today. This is Wednesday. We're recording. The game it's an afternoon game. Phillies are a great team, one of the best in the major leagues. They hit the hell out of the ball. They score a lot of runs. They got shut out last night. So this is Wednesday. It was Tuesday night. So I like that game. We're getting decent odds. They're a little bit of a fave. And we don't have great pitching. So that tells me Vegas is on this too. You're not going to shut the Phillies out 2 games in a row very often. Let's knock on some wood, Jeff. So these are the little things that we look for. And again, you can't bet baseball every day, Jeff. You got to pick your chances. You got to, it's not the golden years 20 years ago where the Yankees were going to win, 120 games a year. And, your biggest decision was how much do I want to risk on the one time out of every 10 that they're going to lose. So
right.
We'll do our research. We'll keep watching things. And, that's kind of what we're looking for here.
All right. You wanted to talk about some European soccer, Euro soccer. What do
Jeff,
you got there before we go to golf, my favorite, but let's go to soccer first.
Well, we've got posted odds, Jeff, for the Euros, which, for Americans that aren't into soccer, this is a huge, huge gambling event. It's the European Championships, kind of the World Cup of Europe, Jeff. And, I've been over there for a couple of these. It's a delightful thing, Jeff. When you go to watch a game, unless you're at the game, if you're at the match or the game, whatever you want to call it, I mean, then it's a pretty raucous thing. But if you're in a pub or you're in a bar, it's quiet. The commentators are all you hear. People just kind of whisper. You're not supposed to talk at all. It's a delightful thing, Jeff. There's no timeouts. There's no stoppages. Everybody's in their colors of their country. So it's a phenomenally important thing in Europe and probably be the biggest wagered thing of the summer, one of the biggest of the year, Jeff. So, of course, we're going to get involved in this, but we got to be careful. Anytime we talk soccer betting, I like to remind everybody, if you're taking a team, you're cutting your odds to 33.33% because you're betting a team to win, or you're betting a team to lose, or you're betting them to draw. So we got 3 bets, Jeff, which to me, that's even more chess involved. So we're going to go lately with this. If you give goals, you might take England to beat Croatia, but then you're laying a goal, so then you're already down 1-0. I don't like doing that. But anyway, talking about who's going to win this, Jeff, and it starts June 14th. Favorites right now, England, heavily favored, 275. They're plus 275. So that is the most favored team. They lost on penalty kicks 2 years ago, I believe it was, in the Euros. So they have a very talented squad, but traditionally they don't win these things. France, number 2 favorite at plus 350. Now here's the one we're looking at, Jeff. Germany hosted the tournament. And Germany, one of the greatest soccer countries ever. I mean, some of the greatest coaches and players. I mean, these guys are awesome. Plus 500 now to win the tournament, Jeff. That's something that we'll be looking at next week. We're going to be putting out plays that we think are solid value and great plays. Italy, Jeff, my favorite team in all of sports, Brian. There have been World Cups or Euro Championships where it was announced that players on the team and sometimes the coach were going to be arrested unless they win the tournament. And they go and win the tournament, Jeff. I've seen it happen twice now. The whole team sometimes is under investigation. The Italian Professional Soccer League is famous for having some ties to Cosa Nostra, having some corruption ties, paying off referees or paying off players. And I can't remember if it was a World Cup or if it was a Euro, Jeff, but they were all going to jail. They won the tournament. They made statues for these guys after they won the tournament. So sometimes you're playing for your life. Sometimes you're playing for your country. Spain is a plus 800. Portugal, plus 800. So there's a lot of money to be made. We're going to have to figure out and pick the winners. And then if we want to go to the real underdogs, Jeff, and I like these guys. We had Iceland make it to the semifinals one year. They had their goalie was a dentist. So you never know. We've got Czech Republic and Poland plus 10,000, Jeff. That's a pretty, that's our office bet. Anytime you have plus 10,000 odds, then, you got to put $1 on it probably. So we'll be talking and we'll have some numbers punched for next week on who we're taking for the following week when it starts.
Hey, give me Romania plus 15,000. Why?
Holy moly.
My grandfather immigrated to this country from Romania. So I do have Romanian roots. So yeah, I know nothing about them. I know nothing about the game of soccer really, but
a dollar
wins odds.
$1 wins you $150. I mean, that's fantastic, right? Fantastic odds. And we should see a lot of these games. They play them later afternoon or night, and they'll be on, and it's going to be a fun summer.
And we'll talk about that more next week for sure. Let's finish up the show with some golf, as we always do to wrap it up. This week on the PGA Tour, the RBC Canadian Open. This is kind of like a lull in the schedule. You have Colonial next week, and then that's gearing up for the U.S. Open in 2 weeks over Father's Day weekend. But this is also the LPGA U.S. Open, so I want to talk to you about that as well. But let's first go to the RBC. Rory McIlroy, the odds-on favorite to win at plus 360. What do you think here?
I mean, tough not to bet with him, Jeff, right? I mean, this guy.
I agree.
There aren't many horses in this competition. I mean, I looked at a couple. Adam Scott's probably a decent long shot bet. He's been playing really good golf. The course is easy from what I read. I mean, we're not talking about some challenging track.
Yeah.
And Adam and Rory, I mean, these guys drive it as good as anybody ever has. It'll come down to putting. Both of them are not great putters. I like a little flyer, maybe like a Joel Damon. Joel had a rough year last year after his big fame from the Netflix, whatever, first swing from that PGA show. Had a little problem with the alcohol or whatever, but he's back on track. He's making cuts, and he's a top 5 guy in some of these, approach shots and distance to hole things, which is pretty awesome. I think a tournament where Joel Damon could win, and no one's going to shake their head and be like, that's crazy. And this is part of the season where these guys got to start banking some money that they can qualify for the tournament for the the FedEx Cup and to qualify for
Yeah,
some of the big things at the end of the year. I think Rory and Adam Scott are solid. Joel Damon's my flyer, Jeff. I love the guy. I like his style. Seems like a good guy. Guy likes to drink his beer, and that's a quality thing. I mean, it's a sad week for golf too, Jeff. I mean, horrible week last week, and you wonder the effect on this too, with Grayson, taking his life. I mean, what a horrible situation. So,
yeah.
and I wonder the effect on that, and I wouldn't be shocked if some friend of his or somebody comes out of nowhere and has some inspired golf, and that'd be awesome to see. It'd be good for the family, and it'd be good for his
For
legacy,
sure.
Grayson too.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Sahith Theegala at plus 1,600. That's not a bad bet. He played well at the PGA. Someone else that played well at the PGA is Shane Lowry, plus 2,200. But I just,
Awesome.
it's not a strong field. So I feel like
No,
there are some long shot gambles here that you can win some serious money.
I looked at last week, Jeff. I wonder a little bit, did some of these guys, these guys go to these tournaments. Sometimes they have to, and I think last week some of these stars, Jeff, they went just to party. They got hammered up. The field last week was something happened weird in that golf tournament. All the good guys were gone, and Scheffler did make a comeback on Saturday. We looked at it,
Yeah.
Jeff, plus 550 to take Scheffler. He's down 8 strokes. I can't believe that kid held on. I still don't know his name, Jeff. Was he 180th in the world or something?
Yeah.
Held on and ended up 14 under, 15 under, pretty impressive. But
Yep.
Sahith, I'm worried about Sahith Theegala. I think mentally it's starting to get to him. Sundays he fades, and you hear the media talking about it. We were talking about it. That's got to get to you, and I wonder. Shane Lowry can win any week, though. That guy.
Yep.
I mean, I hear he's a big partier, British Open winner, and who knows? I mean, I'd love to be going to Canada. The weather's going to be spot on. It looks like, and I'm up in. I've been in that part of the North America, Jeff. That is the cleanest air. That ball's got to fly even further. You're in higher altitude, no humidity. I think Rory McIlroy's be driving at 380 yards. I think
Maybe.
that's tough to compete with that.
Well, and then the LPGA US Open, Nelly Korda, who's having a Scotty Scheffler like season. She's winning. I think she's won 6 out of 8 tournaments she's played in this year. I mean, it's really, when you look at the two, Scotty Scheffler and Nelly Korda next to each other in terms of their season so far, it is almost identical. Nelly's already won one major. This is the second major for the women, I believe. She's plus 360. I think that's a safe bet. But here's someone I'm going to tell you about. Lexi Thompson. Now, I'm not sure if you know Lexi Thompson. If you're
Sure,
not much, she's not even 30 years old, and she announced she's going to retire after this season.
I read.
And I think she's plus 11,000. She's not having a great year. I'd put a couple bucks on her. Why? I bet the weight of the world's off her shoulders. She's probably been weighing this for a while, and now it's off her shoulders. She can go out there and just play. She doesn't have to worry about, I'm thinking about retirement. When do I make the announcement? She did it. It's done with. Go out there and we could see her win. And those are good odds.
I love that bet, Jeff. I love Lexi, and I know she's had some mental health issues because she talked about it this week.
Yeah.
Golf is a microscope, and this is her 18th appearance in this tournament. She's not 30, Jeff. She started at 12. She qualified at 12, and I think she won her first event at 15. And the pressure mounted on her. And I've seen this in every level of sports. I agree 100%. I wouldn't be shocked if she won this week, right? She probably feels better than she has her whole life, right? At 12, she became the person she is today. She's golfing every week. She's getting judged on every shot. And people don't know this. Golfers study data more than anybody. They look at their data on putting, driving, shots gained, closest to the pin, fair. So they're driven by data. When you see your name low on every data stream, it's just mentally, it's got to be deflating. Yeah. So I love that bet. Having said that, Jeff, I love Korda. Very attractive lady, Jeff. And, my wife will get mad at me. Neither here nor there for talent, but Korda, awesome player. Dad was a great tennis player, Jeff, when I was a kid in the 80s. The guy was a stud. And I think mom was an athlete of sorts, too. I'm not sure what, Olympic athlete or something. So a lot of pedigree there, but I'm pulling for Lexi this week, and that would be an awesome story.
It would be. All right, Pez, what are some final thoughts for us before you call it a show?
Well, let's enjoy these baseball bets, Jeff, and let's not get ahead of ourselves. You win a couple, and I'm trying not to keep our record for baseball, but I think we've hit 4 in a row now, and that's pretty solid. 5 in a row, maybe, but we're we're going to look at this as an opportunistic investment plan with baseball. We're not going to have plays out every day. Don't look at yourself as this genius that's picking pitchers, and I got a little flack for taking a favorite earlier this week, but they won. You want to take the bets that you have an advantage data-wise, algorithm-wise, and if you can put these intangibles in play too, that will come in to help, and that's what we're going to be doing all summer.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Make sure you check out Pez on Instagram and on Twitter/X at Pez's Picks. You get more of his daily content there. But in the meantime, Pez, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the games. Maybe we'll have some NBA finals next week to already talk about. We'll deal with that then. In the meantime, take it easy, man.
Take care.